Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. I'm your host, the Fellow KGB. You can follow me on Twitter at the Fellow KGB, and it is Friday evening, 6 p.m. Central Time. We're going to be going over the Week 10 start-sit charts. I covered the noon games yesterday. I think there's 5 games that we covered last night. Tonight, we're going to be looking at the remainder of the afternoon games, and then we're also going to take a peek at the Sunday night and the Monday night football game. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop into a screen share. We're going to look at the fantasyfellowship.com. That's where I have all my start-sit charts available for you to check it out. So again, we're just going to kind of scroll down here. We do have the teams on bye, so Atlanta, Dallas, Kansas City, New York Jets. But what we're going to get to here is we're going to be looking at the afternoon games, and then we're also going to take a peek at practice reports. We'll look at some fantasy points allowed per defenses here. So our first game on the schedule for now is going to be the Broncos and the Raiders. Let's hop over to the practice reports and see what Denver's got going on their end. Only player ruled out is a linebacker so far. We have offensive lineman questionable, another offensive lineman questionable. Looks like wide receiver Jerry Jeudy's been limited the last 2. Yeah, man, we're taking questions here. Whatever you need, we're hanging out, answering questions, going over start-sit charts. So fire away in the comments. But we do have on the Denver side, Jerry Jeudy was limited with a shoulder injury the last 2 days. It looks like he's going to play. So he's going to be in our wide receiver 3 territory. And then Tim Patrick, he was limited earlier in the week. It's a full practice in today. So that's really good news for Tim Patrick players. And Noah Fant, he's been limited on Wednesday, full yesterday, and full on Friday. So good news for our weapons here. No running backs are on the injury chart here. So that's really good to see. And then on the Raiders side here, I don't think they have too many offensive pieces here. So it looks like rookie wide receiver Bryan Edwards is full all week here. And then you got Alec Ingold, fullback full. No other really offensive pieces here. Darren Waller, I don't know why he's on the report here, but he's been full all week. So it looks like we got a healthy fantasy squad from the Raiders side here. And we're going to take a minute here just to answer this question from our guy ISO Only. So we're looking at Kenyon Drake, Brandon Cooks, and DJ Moore for Ezekiel Elliott. Drake could be similar to Zeke the rest of the season. Yeah, man. How was I guess what does the rest of your depth look like? Do you think you can afford to go without Zeke? I think Kenyon Drake, we're going to probably talk about him in a little bit, but I did notice he practice limited the last 2 days. Let me just double check here. So there's a chance that he does play. So you see here with the ankle, I guess he was limited all week. So that's a positive sign that he's going to play this week. I don't know what the snap counts are going to look like. They're probably going to use more Chase Edmonds in his first game back. But I do think, I mean, at the moment right now, Ezekiel Elliott and that Cowboys offense, it just does not inspire any confidence at all. So let's just pull up Ezekiel Elliott's stats the last few games here. And we'll look here at your depth in a second. So you say you got Julio, Kenny G, and Kareem Hunt, and Eckler Rojo. I mean, yeah, man, if you got Eckler kind of waiting in the wings, and you're going to have Kareem Hunt probably this week, and Rojo maybe end up being your starters, and then hopefully Kenyon Drake gets the workload that we're looking for maybe next week and going forward. And then I do think Austin Eckler, I don't know if you saw the video of him that he put out last night on his Twitter, but he looked like he's almost back to full strength and running just as normal here. So I think you have enough resources to get by without Ezekiel Elliott. And then I guess just my thinking here, let me filter to PPR. But I mean, Ezekiel Elliott just hasn't been the last 3 games. I know this has been with some bad quarterback play, but at this point, you've survived the last 3 weeks without Ezekiel Elliott. I don't know if he's going to help you. And I mean, if you're going to end up getting Kenyon Drake, Brandon Cooks, and DJ Moore, I mean, those are some pretty good receivers that I think should be in your lineup for the most parts, depending on matchup. And then with Kenny Golladay hurting right now, Julio Jones should be good after the bye. But with Kenny Golladay out, I see this as a potential win for you. So I think I'm going to green light that trade. I think that's a good one, man. And then, I mean, just looking at it from an offensive perspective here, you're moving on from the Dallas offense and you're putting yourself into the Cardinals offense. You're putting yourself into the Houston Texans passing offense, which looks pretty good. And then DJ Moore as well. The Carolina Panther offense is something that I want a piece of. So I think I'm going to co-sign on that trade deal. And we'll see what the rest of the season has in store. But yeah, man, Kenyon Drake, I'm actually I'm pretty optimistic about what he can do the rest of the season. I'm assuming this is a PPR league. He's got a pretty decent floor. But hopefully he gets more passing attempts going forward. But overall, thanks for the question. Back to the Denver Broncos and the Las Vegas Raiders here. Yeah, man, it's a risky one. It just feels weird just sending away Ezekiel Elliott. But when you're getting three players that you could be plugging in into your lineup at any point, it's especially, I mean, as it gets colder, as the season goes on, I want as many good bench options, and I just want depth on my team. So you're cashing in Ezekiel Elliott, but you've also got, a potential golden ticket with Austin Eckler returning soon. It looks like Kareem Hunt and Ronald Jones should be solid enough this week. But then you're going to be able to plug in Brandon Cooks and DJ Moore this week. I think it's a good deal, man. So Broncos Raiders, we just talked about the practice reports there, and then we're going to look at the fantasy points allowed to each position here. So the green matchups are good matchups that we want to target. You got the Broncos allowing over 20 points to the quarterback. The Raiders, same thing, about over 20 points here, maybe 20.5 for each teams. The Broncos are pretty good at limiting the running back points, so it makes me a little bit nervous for Josh Jacobs. We're still going to start Josh Jacobs. He's too much of a stud. You can't really bench him. He's been good in all matchups. He's probably got an 8 to 10 point floor in PPR leagues. But the Raiders, I mean, they're one of the worst teams allowing running back points here. So we might be interested in Melvin Gordon, Phillip Lindsay. The Broncos are pretty generous to receivers here, almost 40 points per game. Raiders about 37. So they're kind of about the same. We're not really scared of each secondaries here. And then against tight ends, both teams are decent against tight end. The Broncos allow about 12 points to the tight end, and the Raiders about 11. But we like both tight ends in this one just because the position's limited, man, and if you got Noah Fant and Darren Waller, those guys are probably in your lineups every week. They're healthy. So looking at the start-sit charts here, you got Drew Lock and I got Derek Carr, both listed as quarterback twos. We did say the Broncos and the Raiders both allow about 20.5 points to the position here. I do think there's a potential that this game could get into a shootout range. A lot of points, a lot of scoring potentially in this one. As far as running backs, the one guy that I feel the best about is Josh Jacobs, just because he's always got a chance to score a touchdown. And we do see him more involved as a receiver this year. I think he's a good bet to finish with 80 to 100 yards in this one. So I feel safest with Josh Jacobs. And then what do we do with Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay? Let's just look at the opportunity report from last weekend and just see how these running backs were used. So Phillip Lindsay and Melvin Gordon here. Melvin Gordon had 44 snaps to Phillip Lindsay's 28. 60% to about 40% here. Lindsay got more carries, so they like to run the ball with Lindsay, and they actually try to target Melvin Gordon in the passing game. But, I mean, you look at this game script here, I mean, they lost 27 to 34. Just nothing happened on the ground here. No targets really for either of these guys. So I'm kind of nervous about it. But if I had to start one, I mean, I might start. I mean, it's difficult because you see the Raiders allowing almost 30 PPR points to the running back. So that's potential for both these guys to be over double digits. There's just so many flex options here. I didn't really know where to squeeze these two guys in. But if you needed to, I think they're both low-end RB2 flex plays. And you kind of hope for the best, and maybe last week is the worst this is going to be. As far as passing options here, I do have Noah Fant as a tight end one. I think Tim Patrick, I have him listed here twice. I'll have to edit that. But we got Tim Patrick, Jerry Jeudy. I think those guys are both strong wide receiver 3 plays. And then if you're in a pinch, KJ Hamler, he's been coming on the last few games here. He did catch 6 of his 10 targets for 75 yards. He also had 1 rushing attempt for 15 yards. So I think this was a 15-point-something fantasy day. So really good stuff out of KJ Hamler here. He scored the week before. So he's really starting to come on here. And I think all 3 receivers could be a decent option here. And the Broncos have been throwing the ball a lot here. Not really want to see Drew Lock run this many times with how injury concerned he's been lately. But I do think Drew Lock in the passing offense could be a good spot here. Let's look at the Raiders side here. I did talk about Derek Carr. We talked about Josh Jacobs. I think you're starting Darren Waller no matter what the matchup is. And then what do you do with these receivers here? You got Hunter Renfrow, Henry Ruggs, Nelson Aguilar, and then rookie Bryan Edwards. We're probably not interested in Bryan Edwards at all. But we do see the Broncos allowing almost 40 wide receiver points per game. So is this Henry Ruggs? Is this Hunter Renfrow? Is this Nelson Aguilar? Let's see the production from last weekend. So Nelson Aguilar led the team with snaps, 84%. Henry Ruggs, 78. Hunter Renfrow, 58. So I'm not really liking Renfrow's usage very much. All guys don't really get a lot of targets. You see Derek Carr only threw the ball 23 times last weekend. We'll see. He's probably going to get almost up to 30 or so this weekend. But 3 targets for Aguilar, 3 for Renfrow, 3 for Henry Ruggs. Not really inspiring a lot of confidence for me. So I think all 3 of these guys probably best left on your bench. It's really hard to pinpoint Nelson Aguilar's when he's going to get a touchdown, but if there's someone that's going to score for the receivers, it's going to be Nelson Aguilar. So he's, I guess, the biggest risk boom bust option there for you. Not really excited to get any of these players in. If you do have Josh Jacobs on your team, I think it might be interesting to snag Devontae Booker as the season gets colder here. We see Devontae Booker finish with 13 snaps, 26%. He had 8 rushing attempts, 68 yards, and a touchdown. So he looked really good last weekend in his limited touches. But again, 14 carries for Josh Jacobs and 8 for Devontae Booker. So it looks like they're maybe conserving Josh Jacobs as a team. I mean, they're what? They're 5-3. They have a potential to win here and move to 6-3 and really start to put their name into the playoff race. I think they're the 7th seed at the moment right now. So I like what the Raiders are doing. It looks like they might be conserving Josh Jacobs, so we'll see how the snap counts break out this weekend. But that is the Raiders and the Broncos game. That game's at 3:05 p.m. Central Time here. So we do have another game here at that same time slot. The Los Angeles Chargers and the Miami Dolphins. Let's first take a look. Let's look at the practice reports first. The Chargers are banged up at running back. We did see Justin Jackson has been ruled out. It's really good to see backup running back Troy Pope full practices all week. So that's going to, put a mix on Joshua Kelly and Kalen Ballage. No other injuries here that we're really too worried about here. Joey Bosa has been ruled out, but the offensive line guys look like they're going to play here. And then on the Miami Dolphins side of things, let's see here. Matt Breida is going to be questionable. He was limited all week with a hamstring injury. I'm not sure if I'm feeling very risky to get him in my lineup, so we'll kind of look at that in a little second here. Running back Patrick Laird, full practice all week. Preston Williams did go on IR this year, so the receivers are going to look a little bit different this weekend. But really nothing too crazy here. No one's been ruled out. We'll see if Durham Smith and Adam Shaheen can go. They practice fully today, so I'm expecting the tight ends to be in full charge. But let's first look at the fantasy points allowed to the positions here. We got some green matchups to take advantage of. Apparently, you don't want to play receivers against the Chargers. They are, the 8th best in the league, about 33.5 points to the receiver position. The Dolphins are really good against tight ends, under 10 points per game. So that makes me a little bit more nervous to see Hunter Henry out there. And then, I don't know, we got some green matchups here. You can pass. The Chargers do allow a good amount of quarterback points. They allow a lot of running back points, and they do allow tight end points. So basically everything but receivers should be okay against them. And then on the Dolphins side of things, they do allow a decent amount of running back points and a decent amount of wide receiver points. It looks like we got a question in the chat room from our guy Magic Tree O. How's it going, man? Should we trade DeAndre Hopkins and Antonio Gibson for Tyler Lockett, Austin Eckler, Myles Gaskin, and Mike Davis? PPR. Wow, those are some big names, man. So I'm going to ask if you can type in, I guess, the rest of your depth here. I'm curious about who you have at wide receiver and running back, just so we can kind of see if you have enough at both positions here. But essentially, you're trading Hopkins for Lockett, and then you're cashing in Antonio Gibson for a running back trio of Eckler, Gaskin, and Mike Davis. So that's going to give you some really strong running back depth. I think I'm open to that. And I guess the last few weeks, it's been frustrating for DeAndre Hopkins owners. Let's just pull up his numbers just from the last couple games here. I know Christian Kirk's been the better fantasy wide receiver probably since like the last month or so, maybe 4 or 5 games. It's been more Christian Kirk than DeAndre Hopkins. And then let's just look here at the PPR numbers from DeAndre Hopkins. So he started off great, but then all of a sudden you're seeing this 6 and this 9.3, even 11 points. Like DeAndre's got to do better than 11 points. So we're seeing a little bit of frustration here. But looks like we got back here. So you do have Mixon, Dobbins, and Jonathan Taylor. And your receivers are Tyreek, Michael Thomas, Brandon Ayuk, Mike Evans, Antonio Brown, and Kelsey is tight end. So you got a lot of juice here. And then I guess the receivers look great. So I think that does make sense then if you want to downgrade from Hopkins to Lockett. To be honest, both guys have been kind of boom bust right now. And I don't mind tying myself to Russell Wilson at all. So I think that's a pretty fair drop off there from Hopkins to Lockett. And then I do like Antonio Gibson a lot, but if you're getting Austin Eckler, Myles Gaskin, and Mike Davis, I think you're probably going to start Mike Davis this week, and then you'll wait for Eckler and Gaskin to return. But I think that would give you maybe 6 running backs with Jonathan Taylor, and then you're pretty loaded at wide receiver here. So I think this is a good trade for you. I think especially I was saying it earlier when we had a trade question. We're at that time of the season where if you think you can make a run into the playoffs, I'm all about making sure my starters are locked in and I start to accumulate some depth here, because who knows what's going to happen, come December. You just want to have a stocked bench and kind of ready to roll. So I think that's what I would do. I think it's a good trade. And you're getting a lot of pieces in that, and I don't really think it's that much of a downgrade from DeAndre Hopkins down to Tyler Lockett. And it might even be a better situation for a wide receiver. So let's just pull up the wide receiver stats here. So, I mean, you're getting the wide receiver 5. You're just swapping out the wide receiver 6. I mean, at this point, this seems almost like too good of a deal for you. I know the numbers here have been frustrating for Tyler Lockett, but on a worst case basis, he gets 8 points. And the other good news is, I mean, your receivers are studs. You're going to be starting Tyreek and Michael Thomas and probably Evans for the most part. So Lockett is maybe a flex for you at this point. And getting those running backs, I mean, Austin Eckler, when he comes back, hopefully, maybe not next weekend, but I'm thinking maybe week 12, we see Austin Eckler back. And then Myles Gaskin, as same thing, week 12. Mike Davis, he'll be the spot start for you this week. And the injury seal is broken on Christian McCaffrey, and I don't know if their season's going to be going anywhere. This is kind of their last stand to say, hey, we might be able to make the playoffs against Tampa Bay. So I think this is a good move for you, and that's one I'm going to co-sign. Thanks for the question, man. And I guess we're talking Dolphins and Chargers. We kind of looked at the spots here that we wanted to target. Got a lot of green matchups here, just a couple of red matchups. So this should be a pretty decent fantasy output day for both teams. At this point, Justin Herbert's a quarterback 1. If you have him on your team and you're not starting him, I don't know what you're doing. You should probably make a trade or something if you're hoarding, multiple 2 or 3 good quarterbacks. You're starting Keenan Allen for sure. I think Keenan Allen's a top 5, top 10 receiver pretty much every week going forward. He's just getting pummeled with the targets. So I love, hey man, no problem. Thanks for hanging out and watching the show. But yeah, Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen, those guys are both must starts. I think Mike Williams at this point, he's a little bit boom bust, but it's looking pretty good here. The Dolphins are allowing 40 points to the wide receivers here. So if you think Keenan Allen's going to get 15 to 20, the pie is not very big for Justin Herbert. He does kind of whip it around to guys like Jalen Guyton, a couple other tight ends and stuff. But if they're allowing 40 points to the wide receivers here, you got to think Keenan Allen's going to get his, and then there should be enough for Mike Williams to kind of do what he does. Hunter Henry is the one guy that I'm hesitant on because we do see the Dolphins are pretty good against the tight ends here, under 10 points per game. But it's so tight end points are so hard to come by where I think if you have Hunter Henry, you don't have a better option behind you. I think I'm okay with leaving Hunter Henry in the lineups this weekend. And then what do we do at running back? They've already ruled out Justin Jackson, so I'm gonna put out next to his name. So we're gonna see this big mess, this big trio of Joshua Kelly, Troymaine Pope, and Kalen Ballage. So I'm just want to look back and see what the Chargers were doing last weekend. I mean, Justin Jackson was out on the first series, so they rolled with Joshua Kelly and Kalen Ballage. So Ballage got 15 carries and a touchdown. Josh Kelly just 9 for 28, but Kelly got a lot more targets. He got five catches on 5 targets for 31 yards. So these guys are going to be kind of in the mix, but we also have to factor in the third running back, Troymaine Pope. So I want to look back at week 8 and show you guys what Troymaine Pope did, because it was pretty impressive from a PPR standpoint. And if you're in a PPR league, this guy might have your attention if you are in a pinch and need a spot start. So they did give him 10 carries for 67 yards back in week 8. And he also had 7 targets, 5 catches for 28 yards. So this is a guy who he had a concussion symptom last week. He didn't play. He practiced fully all week. And in this game, he played a little bit more than Josh Kelly. So you're going to see basically this 3 running back mix. They're probably all going to be around 30% snap share. I don't really feel comfortable saying this guy or this guy is a must start. But I mean, if you're in a pinch, I would probably whip out Troymaine Pope in a PPR league. We do see the Dolphins do give up a good amount of running back points here, but I really don't have a good read on who's going to get the snaps here. Maybe Kalen Ballage gets the goal line touchdown again, but I would bet Troymaine Pope and Josh Kelly get more targets. I don't know. I don't really feel comfortable with it, but if you're feeling risky, I think all 3 guys could be a useful option for you this weekend. On the Dolphin side of things, I think Tua Tagovailoa is pretty much useful only in Superflex leagues. The Chargers are a good target here. They allow about 21 points per game to the quarterback. So if you're in a pinch and you need somebody to start in a 1-quarterback league, I suppose Tua could be the guy for you this weekend. He's going to be throwing to Devontae Parker, Mike Gesicki, and then probably Jakeem Grant. If you don't know about Jakeem Grant, he's kind of like a discount version of Tyreek Hill. You probably saw him, run the touchdown back on the punt return a couple games ago. Just freakishly fast dude. He's really good slot receiver. So Devontae Parker, Jakeem Grant, Mike Gesicki, these are going to be the leading target guys for the Dolphins and Tua. But the Chargers are pretty good against the wide receivers here, just under 34 PPR points to the wide receiver position. So We're going to rank Devontae Parker as a wide receiver 3 flex. If you're in a pinch, Jakeem Grant could be the guy for you. I just want to pull up and show you guys what Jakeem Grant did last weekend. And Preston Williams, he's probably out for the season. He does have a foot injury. Last year it was the ACL, but now it's the foot. We don't know if we're going to see him back again this year. So this is going to make Jakeem Grant their second option in the passing game. I guess you could count Mike Gesicki as the second option, but I do see Jakeem Grant after Preston Williams goes out. Jakeem Grant got the second most snaps on the team. He had 5 targets, 4 catches, 35 yards. And you got to expect, now that Preston Williams is done, you're probably going to see Jakeem Grant flirt with about 60 to 70% of the snap share. And if he's getting 5 targets and about 50% of the snaps, you're probably going to see 6 to 7 to 8 targets per game on a routine basis here. So if you need help at wide receiver position and you have a bench spot, maybe Jakeem Grant's a guy to kind of just add for this week and kind of see how it goes this weekend. I'm open to him having an expanded role now that Preston Williams is out of the lineup. And then Mike Gesicki, we're going to keep rolling out with Mike Gesicki. He caught 3 for 42. Again, Preston Williams is out of the lineup. We might be able to see Mike Gesicki kind of enter our good graces as a top tight end. The Chargers are pretty vulnerable against tight ends, about 14.5 points. So if we can get 10 to 14 points out of Gesicki, go ahead and fire him up. The defenses are both interesting, but I don't really trust them. The Dolphins have been hot, so maybe you keep rolling with the hot hand here. I don't think I like the Chargers at all. They kind of let teams kind of just do some stupid stuff sometimes and just score in weird ways. And then the running backs for the Dolphins, Jordan Howard, Matt Breida, DeAndre Washington. I don't have a good read on anyone here. I'm open to DeAndre Washington maybe taking over this backfield while Myles Gaskin is out this weekend and next weekend. So who knows? I just know it's not Jordan Howard. If you play in a touchdown league, sure, you can fire up Jordan Howard, but we really haven't seen much from him or Matt Breida. So it's kind of a mess in both backfields, to be honest. But a really fun matchup here. Rookie quarterback. There should be a lot of opportunities for both guys to kind of make a stamp on this game. So this is going to be a fun one to keep an eye on. Moving on to the Buffalo Bills and the Arizona Cardinals. Let's first of all, let's look at the fantasy points allowed here to the positions. A couple red matchups here. The Bills are pretty good against receivers, of course, Tre'Davious White. And then the Cardinals are pretty good against the tight ends for some reason, about 11 points per game. And then the Bills are the opposite. The Bills are really bad against tight ends, almost 17 points per game to the tight ends. But there's really no tight ends for either team in this game. I don't know if we're going to say, oh, Dawson Knox, Tyler Kroft, Dan Arnold, Darrell Daniels. If you're feeling risky, pick one of those names on the Cardinals side here, Dan Arnold or Darrell Daniels. Maybe the Bills give up a touchdown to one of those guys. Let's pop over to the practice reports real quick here. We have on the Buffalo side of things, the only guy ruled out here is backup running back Tawan Jones. Otherwise, TJ Yeldon, full practices. Let's see here. Receivers, John Brown. Didn't practice on Wednesday. I think that's a Veterans Day rest for him, but he got a full practice in Thursday, Friday. Same thing with Josh Allen. He's been healthy all week. Really nothing too crazy here on the Buffalo Bills side of things here. We do see some healthy secondary guys here. A couple questionable. Cody Ford here. Micah Hyde, questionable with the ankle injury. He didn't practice today. He was downgraded from yesterday. So that's kind of something to keep an eye on. On the Arizona side of things here, we do have a couple guys ruled out here, but nothing too crazy for fantasy, just a couple offensive linemen and some defensive linemen. Let's see here. Kenyon Drake, he was limited all week. We talked about him at the top of the show with some trade questions. He's probably going to play. I don't know if I'm comfortable starting him this weekend. They're probably going to kind of ease him back into the mix. Chase Edmonds has been playing pretty well here, so we might see a little bit more Chase Edmonds and Kenyon Drake, and then maybe Kenyon Drake gets more run as he gets healthier and the season continues. DeAndre Hopkins, full participant in the last 2 days. Let's see here. Max Williams, tight end there. He's limited the last 2 days. Not really sure we trust any of these Cardinals tight ends, but overall pretty healthy for our main key weapons on both teams. Starting with the Buffalo Bills, both quarterbacks. You're starting Josh Allen, you're starting Kyler Murray, no matter what. And then basically the stud receivers, Stephon Diggs, DeAndre Hopkins. I don't need to tell you guys to start these guys, but Christian Kirk, man, he's been in our good graces the last few weeks. I think if you expect DeAndre Hopkins to draw a lot of Tre'Davious White, that could leave Christian Kirk with the best matchups on the outside there. I think same thing with John Brown too. I want to see here the Cardinals. I think they did rule out, let's see here, Drake Kirkpatrick. This is their backup corner or their number 2 corner. He's questionable in this game with a thigh injury here. He's limited all week, so we'll see if he can go. But either way, if he does play, he might be a little bit less than 100% here. So I do think John Brown could have himself a nice game. This is a revenge game for John Brown. I don't know if I call it revenge. He didn't re-sign with the team. He did go to Baltimore and then Buffalo, I think, after he was with the Cardinals. So we'll see if John Brown can keep it going. He did catch 9 balls last weekend, a really good game for both Diggs and John Brown. I like both these guys here. Cole Beasley is just a really deep PPR flex if you need 8 to 10 points as a floor. And then what do we do with our Buffalo Bills running backs here? We do see the Cardinals are not the greatest against running backs here, but they're not, awful either. About 24 PPR points here. And we do see Zach Moss starting to overtake Devin Singletary here. So if you have Devin Singletary, I'm probably not starting him until we see a reason to. Last week against the Seattle Seahawks, a game that they were controlling and they were up a lot. They just unleashed Josh Allen and they just threw the ball so well that they didn't need to run. But we see Zach Moss, 56% snap share to Devin Singletary's 46. Zach Moss gets 9 carries to Devin's 2 carries. And then the target, they're both going to be used in the passing game. But we care most about what's going to happen when they get to the goal line. We see Zach Moss scoring touchdowns all of a sudden. He's out snapping and out touching Devin Singletary. So this is a guy here that as the weather gets colder in Buffalo, they're going to have to continue to run the ball, I think. And as long as they give him touchdowns in the red zone, Zach Moss is going to be a potential RB2 flex for most plays the rest of the season here. So I like Moss. I think I'm going to move Singletary to the bench. And that's kind of like a prove it situation where we're not going to start him until we see him do something worth starting. And then on the bench here, we got Gabriel Davis, Dawson Knox, Tyler Kroft. Gabriel Davis has been playing well here. He did catch a touchdown. He dropped a touchdown the week before too, so he should have been scoring in 2 straight games. But we see 4 for 70 and a touchdown, 5 targets. It was against Seattle, so I like to see him kind of do it in another matchup before we trust him. But he's definitely a guy I'm keeping my eye on. And then you got both tight ends here. It's kind of Russian roulette with the tight ends. If you need someone there, Dawson Knox or Tyler Kroft. Again, the Cardinals are pretty decent against the tight end, so I don't know if I trust either one. On the Cardinals side of things, Kyler Murray, fantastic. Fire him up. You're not moving Kyler Murray out of the number 1 spot there. DeAndre Hopkins, we'll see if he can get back on track. I think he only had like 3 or 4 targets last weekend, so that was a little bit strange. Christian Kirk has been rolling lately. He's actually scored more points than DeAndre Hopkins, I think, in the last 4 or 5 games. So if you have Christian Kirk, try to find a way to get him into your lineups. It should be a really good game for him. I have Larry Fitzgerald down here as a flex, just because we're starting to see Larry Fitzgerald just get more, he's getting more consistency with his game here. Let's just pull up the Arizona numbers here. So Larry Fitzgerald last weekend, 5 targets, 4 catches, 54 yards. That's 9.4 points in a PPR league if you got a guy that's on bye. Calvin Ridley, Julio Jones, Tyreek Hill, Amari Cooper, these kind of guys, you could plug Larry Fitzgerald in and see what happens. I'm open to him having a decent game for a high PPR floor. And then we have Chase Edmonds here. Because I think Kenyon Drake is going to play, I do have Edmonds listed as a low-end RB2 flex. We'll see about Kenyon Drake, but I'm assuming Chase Edmonds, even if Drake plays, Edmonds is going to be the guy that gets the more snaps, more opportunities as they ease Drake back in. And then I'm really not interested in any other pieces here. But as far as the afternoon games, this is a really fun game here. We'll see if the Cardinals can put a stamp on this one and try to, re-dominate or re-enter the conversation on the MC as a dominant team. Buffalo just beat the Seattle Seahawks, so that's a really big storyline too. A lot of fun teams here, both young quarterbacks, good receivers, young running back play here, kind of almost mirrors of each other, just a little bit different forms of how they move the ball. But again, Bills, Cardinals, enjoy that game on the 3:05 time slot. Moving on to the Seattle Seahawks and the Los Angeles Rams here. Let's first hop over to the practice reports and see what Seattle's got cooking. We got a pretty lengthy list here. Holy crap, this is probably the longest list that I've seen so far this week. Let's just kind of roll it down here. It looks like Jamal Adams is going to play. A couple offensive linemen here. Let's just first look at the guys that are ruled out here, and really no one sticking out to me. As far as wide receivers, just a backup receiver, Penny Hart, not practicing. Freddie Swain's kind of their number 3 or number 4 guy. Looks like he's questionable with a foot, did not practice today. But as far as running backs here, that's probably the most interesting position to watch. Chris Carson has not practiced all week. I'm assuming he's not going to go. Usually you want to see your guy get at least 1 limited practice in before he plays. But he's going to be a game-time decision. We'll have to watch that up until kickoff there. Travis Homer, Carlos Hyde, both got limited practices in today. It looks like Travis Homer will play. I'm assuming Carlos Hyde has a chance to play. So we really have to monitor this running back field going up into the Sunday. Kind of sucks that it's a late game, but the good news is there's a lot of late games where you could pivot to if you need it. So looking at the start-sit charts, we'll first look at the fantasy points allowed here to identify any positive matchups. I mean, the Seattle Seahawks, man, they're the worst team against quarterbacks. They are the worst team against wide receivers. So we're going to be pro Jared Goff. We're going to love Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods. We'll consider the both tight ends in this one too. Seahawks are very good against the tight ends, though, but the way the Rams use their guys, they kind of use them as a receiver, so we'll see about that. And then on the Rams side, they're one of the better defenses in all fantasy categories here. They do allow a decent amount of points to the tight end position, so maybe we see guys like Jacob Hollister, Will Dissly, or Greg Olsen make a play. But otherwise, I mean, this is kind of a pretty stout defense against quarterback under 15 points here. Against the receivers are the second best team, about 26.5, and then they're pretty stout against the running backs here, about 21. So this is going to challenge Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and then maybe the tight ends get more involved in this one. As we see, that's the worst part of the Rams defense. So how do we navigate this start-sit chart here? I'm starting both quarterbacks. I think if you have Russell Wilson, you're going to keep rolling out your stud. Jared Goff becomes probably my number one quarterback streamer this weekend if you did need a quarterback and he's available. Like we did say here, the Seahawks, man, they're the worst team against the quarterbacks, worst team against the wide receivers. So we love Jared Goff. You're starting Cooper Kupp. You're starting Robert Woods. These guys are locks for me this weekend. I think Darrell Henderson is healthy. He's going to play. He's going to be an RB2 for me. The Seahawks are average, middle of the pack here against the running backs, but Darrell Henderson is their best running back, I believe. So he's going to be a RB2 flex kind of territory there. The tight end, what do we do with Tyler Higbee, Gerald Everett? Higbee's been dinged up with the hand injury the last couple games, but it looks like he's good to go. I don't think that's bothering him anymore. So I did notice Tyler Higbee's been a popular name to drop the last couple weeks, or I guess this week especially. But a lot of people are moving on from Tyler Higbee, and I'm just if you have the ability or the roster spot at the end of your bench to add a guy like Tyler Higbee, because we saw what he did last year at the end of the stretch, and if Gerald Everett or anything else gets hurt, we could see more of these tight ends get utilized in the offense. So I'm kind of open to Tyler Higbee being a low-end tight end one streamer. I don't really trust it. Like we said, the Seahawks are pretty good against the tight ends, about 8.5 points to the tight ends here. That's the fourth best, or I guess the fourth worst amount of points allowed. So we really like what the Seahawks do against the receivers and not so much against the tight ends here. So Higbee, Everett, I'm not really trying to get either of these guys in my lineup. We'll kind of continue watching Cam Akers and see if he can get more work as Darrell Henderson and Malcolm Brown are ahead of him. We don't know what it's going to be, but I'm watching the backfields here. But if you had to start one running back, it's going to be Darrell Henderson. Maybe Malcolm Brown punches in a goal line touchdown, but nothing really comfortable here on the running back side here. For the Seahawks, you're starting Russ Wilson. I think you have to start DK Metcalf and you have to start Tyler Lockett. These guys have shown so much upside here with Lockett's 53-point game and Metcalf's recent 40-point game. You're going to feel stupid if you bench these guys, and it's okay. They've done so much good work for this that we don't really care if they do put up like a stinker, like a 6 or 7-point game. They've earned our trust in our lineup. So continue starting Metcalf, continue starting Tyler Lockett. Jalen Ramsey did say today that, yeah, he's probably going to be covering pretty much all the receivers. So it's not like he's going to be locked in on one side, just taking away Lockett or taking away Metcalf. I think the Seahawks are going to be scheming things up, and the Rams are also going to be mixing up their looks too. So it's not like he's going to be, a premier lock on DK or Lockett. So I'm interested in both receivers there. The one guy to keep an eye on is the third string wide receiver, David Moore. He's been coming on lately, and he's been a popular pickup, I think, in most leagues, especially this week. Let's just take a look at David Moore's numbers. And as a defensive coordinator, like, you have to respect Russell Wilson. You have to take away Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. So this is a guy that I think a lot of defensive coordinators are just like content with. Hey, he can get the worst matchup on our secondary. We'll see if he can hit it. But the last 3 games, he's been playing pretty well here. He doesn't get a lot of targets. Last weekend, he did get 6 targets, 4 catches, 71 yards, and a touchdown. Touchdowns in back-to-back weeks. And I guess the last 3 weeks, we see 8.8, 13.6, 17.1 here. So I kind of like what I see out of the third-string receiver here. We did say Freddie Swain is dinged up here, so we might see a lot more snaps for the third-string receiver here in David Moore. So I have him as a low-end wide receiver 3 flex. If you have a guy on a bye or an injury, David Moore might be available in your league. We're not starting either defenses, I don't think, in this one. And then we did talk about Chris Carson not practicing all weekend. If Carson can't play, I think you got to continue rolling out DJ Dallas. But we have to also monitor Carlos Hyde. We have to monitor Travis Homer. But assuming Chris Carson does not play in this one, I think you have to start DJ Dallas. He's been the best pass-catching running back outside of Carson. And then what did it do with the tight ends here? I did notice last weekend that Jacob Hollister led the team in snaps, for the tight ends, and then he also had the most targets. So looking at these guys here, Jacob Hollister, 31 snaps, 26 for Old Greg, and 21 for Will Dissly. And then the targets were 7 for Hollister, 3 for Greg, and 1 for Will Dissly. So this is something that caught my attention here. If you remember last year, Jacob Hollister was kind of the last healthy tight end on the roster, and he was actually a usable high floor PPR play as a tight end 1. So if he 7 targets, 5 catches, 60 yards, that's 11 points, man. And with how much of a crapshoot the tight end position is, I'm super interested in a guy like Jacob Hollister. I have actually added him to a couple of my leagues as the last player on my roster. So just something to monitor here. We'll see if the tight end snaps continue to go in his way, but it's something that I think could be a key position to watch there. So Seahawks-Rams, a really fun game here. We'll see if the Rams can stifle Russell Wilson and the elite receivers. Moving on to, I think this is the last afternoon game. No, we got 2 more to talk about here. We got the 49ers and the Saints. I don't really feel comfortable with a lot of my 49ers in this one. As you look at the fantasy points allowed here, 49ers still have a good defense, but the Packers were able to take advantage of them. So I think it's going to be a pretty similar afternoon for the New Orleans Saints offense. The 49ers are pretty good against the running back here, pretty good against the tight end, but you're not benching Alvin Kamara. Jared Cook, and I'm not really sure. I have him listed here on the bench here, so I'm not really trusting Jared Cook at all in this one. So how do we navigate this? I think you're starting Drew Brees as a low-end quarterback 1. He looks best as a quarterback 2 in Superflex leagues. Alvin Kamara, fire him up. Michael Thomas, let's go. Emmanuel Sanders, revenge game. He just helped this team get to a Super Bowl last year. So I'm interested if there's a little bit more incentive for Emmanuel Sanders to kind of ball out against his old team. He can be a wide receiver 3 flex. I think you're going to start the Saints defense after the way they played against Tampa Bay last week. And then these guys are all just bench guys for me. I really don't know if I can trust either one. The weird thing was Jared Cook got the fewest amount of tight end snaps last weekend. So Josh Hill and the rookie Adam Troutman got more snaps than Jared Cook. So I don't think I'm going to feel comfortable with Jared Cook in my lineups. The 49ers have great linebackers. Fred Warner, one of the best linebackers in the game. I think he's going to be able to take away Jared Cook. So I'm not feeling the tight end there. On the 49er side of things, Nick Mullins, emergency superflex quarterback. Jerick McKinnon's probably like one of the safest plays in this offense in a PPR league. I think he can be a low-end RB2 flex. He has been getting more run than JaMycal Hasty last weekend. They did rule out Raheem Mostert already. Tevin Coleman's been ruled out. So it's just going to be McKinnon, and it's going to be Hasty, and probably McKinnon's the guy that you want there. As far as receivers, I just want to look at the practice reports real quick on these guys. Deebo Samuel did not practice all week. He's already been ruled out, so that's interesting here. That means I'm going to move him out of here, and you're going to probably, if you have Brandon Ayuk, I think you got to start Brandon Ayuk this week, or at least try to get him in the lineup. And then Ross Dwelley, just because it's a low bar for tight ends. The Saints, that's the only green matchup they have on their side here, allowing almost 15 points to the tight end position. And Dwelley's got a nice report with Nick Mullins here, so I think Dwelley, if he's available, pick him up, start him if you need the help there. And then I don't know, I don't really trust the 49ers defense. It's a quality defense, but it's just not what it's been the last couple of years. And now all of a sudden, all the injuries, I just can't trust the 49ers defense going up against the Saints offense. Richie James, maybe he gets more run with Deebo Samuel out. He was probably a pretty popular waiver wire ad this weekend. But you're kind of, I don't know, you're playing on the edge there with Richie James. He just came off of a career-high game. I don't know if we can expect that. You can't expect that to happen again, but he should be, one of the leading receivers in targets in this one. But I don't know. It's the Saints are going to roll in this one. I'm expecting them to. The 49ers should put up a fight, but pretty simple fantasy evaluation on that side. Looking at the Bengals and the Steelers, this could be a really fun game to watch here as Joe Burrow coming off a bye. Feeling pretty good. They picked up the win before the bye. Now they're going to Pittsburgh here. Pittsburgh, looking at the fantasy points allowed here, they do allow a decent amount of points to the wide receivers. Number 1 against the running backs, number 3 against tight ends, and 5th against the quarterbacks here. So something's got to give. We might see the receivers have a good game. Maybe Joe Burrow struggles and gets sacked or has some fumbles, an interception or something. And then on the Bengals defensive side here, not scared about anything here. I think we're going to like the Steelers offense quite a bit. But the one guy that I do want to point out here, the Bengals are 31st against the tight ends, about 17.8 points. So start Eric Ebron. If you got Eric Ebron this weekend, this is the one to do it. He's been playing good football lately, and I think he's got a really good chance to have the best game of his season in this one. As far as the start-sit charts, I have both guys listed as quarterback ones. I don't know if I'm comfortable with that. I might move them down to quarterback twos. But if you're in a pinch, I think both guys could be streamed as a quarterback one option. James Conner is going to be in your lineup as your running back one. He had a bad game last weekend. I don't think that's going to happen again in this one against a prime matchup against the Bengals. Joe Mixon has not practiced all week, and that's concerning. Coming off of the bye, we thought Joe Mixon would be back, but he's already listed as doubtful here. So probably not going to see Joe Mixon here. We're going to continue to lean on Giovanni Bernard. So check your leagues. If he was dropped, he should be added and probably played this weekend. Even though the Steelers are very good against the running back, they're the best team against the running back, almost 18 points per game here. But the way the Bengals use their running backs, like Bernard's going to get 90% of the touches. So if you think 90% of this 18 points here, that's going to be 15, 16 points. So don't overthink it. I think continue, especially in a PPR league, you're going to want to roll out Giovanni Bernard. The Steelers, they're not good against wide receivers. Almost 40 points per game to the wide receiver group. So Tyler Boyd in your lineup, T. Higgins in your lineup. Consider AJ Green, wide receiver 3 flex, but I feel comfortable with Boyd. Boyd's probably the best play of this offense. A lot of targets, a lot of short area stuff. T. Higgins does have a chance at a touchdown. And then again, consider AJ Green. We're not starting the Bengals defense. Monitor Auden Tate. This is the guy that I think you could pick up and put on the end of your roster. And he played really well before the bye. He caught all 7 of his targets. He had a good amount of receiving yards. I just want to pull that up again because, I mean, at this point, we just simply can't trust A.J. Green. Even if he's getting a ton of snaps, he's not really playing very well. And the thing that happened back in week 8 that caught my attention, Auden Tate played on a season-high 45% snaps, caught all 7 of his targets, 465 yards. So A.J. Green with his snaps, 85%, only 2 of his 5 targets were caught, 19 yards. So as the season goes on, maybe we see Auden Tate kind of eat into the snap share here. Again, not saying to start Auden Tate, but it's something to keep an eye on here. And I'm not starting the tight end, Joe Mixon, out. So we got a question here real quick from our guy, Kashif Mostafa. So we're looking at Mike Davis or Leonard Fournette here. So, I mean, let's take a look first at they're both really good matchups in this one. I just want to pull up what we looked at last time. So we're going to ESPN. I'm going to pull up the box score from the last game between these two guys because both teams played already. And again, this is back in week 2. If you guys remember, this was Leonard Fournette's kind of big breakout game. Tampa Bay won 31-17. And then looking at the box score here, you do see Leonard Fournette, 12 carries, 103 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then Mike Davis, Christian McCaffrey got hurt at the end of this one. So Mike Davis comes in the fourth quarter, catches 8 balls for 74 yards. So in a PPR league, that's 15.4 points right there for us. So I kind of like that. And then the thing is, the Carolina Panthers, their defense is not great against the running backs. I don't know if Leonard Fournette's going to have this 12 for 103 and 2 touchdowns again. I still think Ronald Jones is the better running back. But just because there's questions with Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones, we don't know how the snap share is going to work. I think I'm more comfortable saying start Mike Davis. We know he's got no competition for carries, for targets. I think that's going to be the way to go. And Tampa Bay's defense is pretty good against running backs. But if the Panthers get down to the 1 or 2 yard line, you can bank on Mike Davis getting a look or two there, and then we know he can catch the ball against them. And Carolina moved the ball pretty well against Tampa Bay back in week 2 here. Teddy Bridgewater 367 yards, and again Mike Davis 8 for 74. So just because there's not really clarity on Ronald Jones versus Leonard Fournette, I think I'm going to lean towards the guy that I feel more comfortable with in Mike Davis. So thanks for the question, man. But getting back to the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cincinnati Bengals, Andrew Bauer says, go Ebron. Yeah, man, this is going to be a really good day for Eric Ebron. We talked about the Bengals a little bit ago, allowing almost 18 points to the tight end position here. So Eric Ebron is going to be one of my favorite spot starts for tight end. He's probably going to be a pretty popular DFS option for me, DraftKings FanDuel kind of lineups. But looking at the Steelers here, Ben Roethlisberger, I think he's going to play in this one. He seems to be fine. I don't think he did get COVID. He was just listed as a close contact, but the team's going to activate him tomorrow. He should be good to go as a quarterback one in this one. We love James Conner. Juju Smith-Schuster's in our lineups for sure. I think Chase Claypool and Deontay Johnson both should be a wide receiver 3 flex in your lineups. And then, yes, Eric Ebron. We're starting all of our Steelers, I think, this weekend. You're starting the defense, and we'll keep an eye on James Washington, Anthony McFarland, Benny Snell Jr. But pretty good spot here for the Steelers here. So make sure you get you guys in your lineups here. And then we're on to Sunday Night Football. Baltimore Ravens, New England Patriots here. So this is a really fun matchup here. Let's first look at the defenses here. Nothing like stands out as a green matchup here. So we see a lot of red. Ravens defense, very good against quarterbacks, very good against running backs, very good against wide receivers. Middle of the road against tight ends. It's just unfortunate. Patriots don't use their tight end. Ryan Izzo would be the guy, but you're not starting Ryan Izzo. And then on the Patriots defense here, they're very good against quarterbacks. Under 15 points per game to the quarterback spot here. The Patriots can't be had in the running game. They've been getting kind of dinged up against teams' running backs lately. So we see about 24 points per game to the running back spot. They're okay against the receivers, about 36 here. And then they're the number 1 team against tight ends. So that makes me a little bit nervous for Mark Andrews. So if anyone has any Mark Andrews, like start this guy or Mark Andrews questions, fire them away in the chat room. We're very nervous about Mark Andrews. He's been super hit or miss, and he's been very missed the last few weekends. So if you look at this start-sit chart here, I'm not really comfortable with this game here. There's a lot of good defensive players in this one. Lamar Jackson, I think you have to continue rolling out what he has been doing. He destroyed this Patriots defense last year, and it was the Patriots defense that was like the number 1 fantasy defense. Like everything was going really hot for them at that time, and they're just not the same defense. So if there was a get-right game for Lamar Jackson, I think this could be it. I do want to pull up the Ravens and Patriots game from 2019, because if you remember, this was a Monday Night Football game, I think, and now it's a Sunday night matchup. So let's just look at the box score here. Again, the Ravens rolled 37-20, and the Patriots were the hottest team at the time. They were 8-0 coming into this game, and Lamar just buzzed them. So we see Lamar Jackson only 163 yards and a touchdown, but he did add 61 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Mark Ingram had himself a pretty big game with 115 yards. If you're interested in Mark Andrews in this one, only 2 for 21. Not that great. Marquise Brown, 3 for 48. Again, not that great. They did not really throw the ball for a lot of yards here, 17 for 23, and he spread the ball out quite a bit here. So I'm a little bit nervous. We do see Nick Boyle caught the touchdown, 5 catches, 23 yards, and a touchdown here. So between the two guys, Boyle and Andrews, I guess you could get a potential touchdown out of Mark Andrews here, but I'm not really feeling great about it. And we can't really get any information because of the Tom Brady side here. But overall, I do think the Ravens could have a get-right game here. Lamar Jackson, quarterback 1. Mark Andrews, boom bust, tight end 1. I think I'm going to give him one more chance this weekend. If he can perform this weekend, then he's back. Then we feel really great about it. But again, Patriots number 1 team against the tight end. But man, at this point, I would take 7 to 8 points in a PPR league from Mark Andrews. Marquise Brown, super boom bust option here for us. Wide receiver 3 flex. Depends. If there's any questions, you can hit me up on Twitter or fire them away in the chat room. But I think I'm leaning towards benching Marquise Brown in this one. We don't really like the options that we have there. You could start Marquise Brown. As far as the running backs here, it does look like our guy Mark Ingram is going to play. So Mark Ingram, limited Wednesday, did not practice Thursday, and then a full practice today. So this looks like he's going to play, which is just going to throw a wrench into the whole J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards plan. I'm not comfortable saying to start either one of these guys, but you can run on the New England Patriots. So someone's going to, have a touchdown on the ground or two. Someone's going to run probably for 100 yards, and I don't know who to tell you who to start. I do like J.K. Dobbins the best. He's the one that's going to catch passes. They might kind of work Mark Ingram in. So I'm still thinking J.K. and Gus are the better 2 plays. I'd like Mark Ingram the least. So you could see Gus Edwards fall into the end zone again. You could see J.K. Dobbins make a couple big plays in the passing game and maybe bust a running play. So if you need an RB2 flex, J.K., Gus Edwards would be my guys. I'm starting the Ravens defense, and I'm not interested in any of this junk down here. Let's see here. We got a trade question here from our guy, Sonny. Let's see. First place in a Superflex league. Trade deadline is today. Would you trade Herbert and James Conner for Lamar Jackson and Austin Eckler. Herbert looks so good, man. I just want to pull up Justin Herbert's schedule for us just to kind of look at this loss. Let's just type in Chargers schedule. I'm in the same boat with you. I have Justin Herbert in a Superflex league, 9-0 in that league, by the way. But the Chargers, the reason I've been getting trade offers for Justin Herbert, and I just can't do it because look at the schedule the rest of the season, man. You got New York Jets this week, Buffalo, they can be had. New England Patriots, it's a tougher matchup, but it's still not difficult for him the way he's been playing. Then you get Atlanta, Las Vegas, and Denver for the weeks 14 through 16 playoff run. So I'm drooling at Atlanta, Las Vegas, Denver. So I think I'm going to hold on to Justin Herbert over Lamar Jackson in that one. And then with James Conner, Austin Eckler, like we really don't even know when Austin Eckler is going to be back. So I think I'm okay with holding on to our guy James Conner here. I just want to pull up the Steelers schedule, see what I'm looking at here. I do like Austin Eckler, but there's questions as to how much they're going to use him. Their team's not going to the playoffs. They might just kind of ease him back in and see how it goes. But if you look at the schedule here for the Steelers, they do get Cincinnati twice in the fantasy schedule. They get Jacksonville. They get Buffalo. Baltimore and Washington will be tough, but James Conner's a tough running back, so he could take advantage of that. And the Colts here. So it's not an overly concerning schedule here. They do have some really juicy matchups. So I think I'm going to keep Herbert and James Conner in that one. Thank you for the question, Sonny. Andrew, Ravens won on Sunday night last year. 1 defensive touchdown. Yeah, so if you have the Ravens defense, this is the week to start the Ravens defense. Cam Newton sometimes throws turnovers in bunches, man. He does fumble the ball too. So for that reason, I do have Cam Newton as a quarterback too in Superflex. I don't trust him in one quarterback leagues. I would look elsewhere. I'd rather start Derek Carr. I'd rather start Jared Goff. There's a couple other guys on my list on my waiver wire report that I would have over Cam Newton. And then as far as the offense, who do you start against this stout Ravens defense? We know we can't use the tight ends here. They allow about 32.6 points to the receivers. So maybe Jacoby Myers. If Jacoby Myers is available in your league, I think he could be a guy that, at this point, he looks like the number 1 receiver for Cam Newton. He had his blow-up game last weekend. This is a kid that had a year ago, he was the best wide receiver in the preseason. So I'm pretty into Jacoby Myers, and if you see 14 targets, 12 catches, 169 yards, you have my attention. So I know it's a tough matchup, but I think Jacoby Myers could be the struggle target for Cam Newton. Damiere Byrd, also an interesting guy here, but I don't really like the upside of a Damiere Byrd going up against a physical defense. I think it could be Jacoby Myers. And then at running back, what do you do here? Damian Harris, Rex Burkhead, James White, Sony Michel. It's just I'm avoiding this backfield if I can. So yeah, man, Sonny, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If you're trying to make a move here, if you want to type in the rest of your what is your receiver group look like? What does your running back group look like? I'm all for trying to make a trade and making your team better. But if you're in a good spot, maybe we don't need to make a trade, or if you have depth at one position and you want to kind of reconsolidate it, I'm open to helping you out and looking at that. But that's pretty much it for the Ravens and the Patriots game. This is a really tricky game for fantasy. I think both defenses, especially the Ravens defense, that's the must play of the group. And then one of the running backs will probably pop off, but it's really hard to tell. Both offenses are pretty frustrating for fantasy this year. And then Monday Night Football, Vikings and the Bears. Okay, this could be a fun one here. We got a few green matchups to take advantage of here. The Vikings defense, not good. Almost 21 points to the quarterbacks here, almost 25 to the running backs. Almost 46 to the wide receivers, and then about almost 14 points to the tight ends. The Bears defense, no joke, number 1 against quarterbacks, under 14 points per game. Bears defense against the running backs, about 21.5, and then against receivers, under 28. The one spot you can take advantage of the Bears is the tight end position here. So kind of an interesting spot there. I do want to get back to our guy in the chat room here, Jason. So rank Cooper Kupp, Robbie Anderson, DJ Chark, Jerry Jeudy, rest of the season. Interesting. I would like to look at the schedules if I could, but if I had to, assuming this is a PPR league, I think Cooper Kupp and Robbie Anderson are my favorites of the group here. I think Robbie Anderson has established himself as a high target kind of volume guy. He actually seems more consistent than Cooper Kupp. So I would put Robbie Anderson and Cooper Kupp at the top, and then I would probably put, just because I'm nervous about the Jaguars with Jake Luton and Gardner Minshew, there's a lot of uncertainty at the quarterback position there. So I think I'm going to put tied between Cooper and Anderson at the top, and then I'm going to put Jared Jeudy number 3, just because the last couple games, man, he's gotten 24 targets the last 2 weeks, and he's scoring his touchdown, just had the big breakout game. So I think Jared Jeudy's number 3 for me. And then I know DJ Chark had a really good game too, but I'm nervous about the Jaguars. Last year, if you remember, they basically imploded at the end of last year. I don't know if that team has a lot of fight left in them. So I think I'm going to roll with a rookie in a PPR league who's getting a lot more targets. I trust Drew Lock a little bit more. So I would rank them Kupp and Anderson at the top, probably Jared Jeudy, and then DJ Chark. If you could move DJ Chark, I think this would be the week to do it. Looks like we got Sam Bill here. Pick 3 to start. Nick Chubb, Josh Jacobs, Miles Sanders, Ronald Jones. Let's see here. The best matchup would probably be Nick Chubb. I'm interested to see if he can get enough snaps in this one, but he's going up against, so this is the funny part, the Texans and the Browns. When I looked at this game, all the matchups here are pretty much green. The Texans are one of the worst teams against the running backs, almost 30.5 points per game here. So I do like Nick Chubb. Josh Jacobs has a little bit tougher task. Denver's the 8th best team against running backs in PPR leagues. And then what do you do with Miles Sanders here? I think Miles Sanders is probably the best. He's the one guy that I would start for sure. Nick Chubb, probably number 2. And then between Josh Jacobs, Ronald Jones, they're both kind of looking at the same thing. Ronald Jones did score a touchdown against the Panthers back in week 2, but Leonard Fournette kind of took over that game and had more run. So I think I'm going to say Miles Sanders, Nick Chubb, Josh Jacobs, and then we'll see about Ronald Jones. So those are the 3 that I would go with. We'll hop over to Sam Bill's other question here. So do I start Noah Fant or Gronk? I think I'm going to roll with Noah Fant in this one. The Carolina Panthers are pretty decent against the tight end position here. Let's just pull that up here. So they allow about 12.5 points to the tight end room here. And then the thing with the Broncos here, the Raiders, actually the Raiders are pretty solid against the tight ends here. So I don't know if that matters that much. But I do like how Noah Fant's been playing. He's been pretty healthy the last couple games. He's getting the targets. They did also rule out Albert Okwuegbunam for the rest of the season. So he's got no more competition for tight end targets. So I think I'm going to say Noah Fant. Just seems a little bit more of a higher floor for me there. And then we're looking at Sonny's team, talking about trades earlier. So his quarterbacks are pretty solid here. He's got Russell Wilson, Justin Herbert, and Alex Smith. Again, this is a Superflex league. At running back, we're rolling out James Conner, Kareem Hunt, Jonathan Taylor, Myles Gaskin. So we're kind of lacking some punch there without Gaskin in the lineup. But then at receiver, he looks great at receiver. He's got Chris Godwin, Terry McLaurin, CeeDee Lamb, and Brandon Cooks, and then Kelsey at the wide receiver or the tight end spot there. So Sonny, who else do you have on your bench? I'm just curious if you, unless that's it, if you have any more bench pieces. But for now, I mean, it looks pretty solid. I don't know if I need to make a move there. No one's probably going to trade for Jonathan Taylor after last night's game. I still think I trust CeeDee Lamb. Hopefully Andy Dalton's back next week, so we'll see about that. But for now, you are looking at Brandon Cooks this weekend, so I think you're in good shape there. And yeah, man, I appreciate it. No problem, Bill. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for the subscription. I try to go live at 6 o'clock Wednesday, Thursday, Friday night. So if you guys ever need any fantasy questions or anything, I got the Fantasy Fellowship Start Sit Charts. Check those out. But I really appreciate the time and hanging out. And I love answering the questions. So thank you guys for hanging out here. But yeah, man, Sonny, if you have any more bench pieces, your team looks pretty. I'm interested in what your record is too. It looks like a pretty solid team with Russell Wilson and Herbert in Superflex format. I mean, Connor, Kareem Hunt, that seems like a pretty good RB duo going forward. And then you're rolling out Godwin, McLaurin, and probably Brandon Cooks this weekend. So nervous about Jacobs. Is he? I'm going to answer that in a second, Bill. But Lazard, Hooper, and Wilkins on your bench. So you got Austin Hooper, good backup tight end. I think Alan Lazard could be a pretty nice option. Hopefully he plays this weekend. But Lazard, man, before he got hurt, he was playing like a wide receiver 2 or 3. So 7-2, that doesn't surprise me. I think you're in a pretty good spot here, Sonny. And like you said before, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I mean, somebody would have to come to you and say, what do you want for Alex Smith and Myles Gaskin or something? I don't know if I'm necessarily need to make a move. So I like where you're at. But back to Sam Bill here. So we're kind of nervous about Jacobs. It's the biggest game of my season. Okay, so I guess I could paint a good picture for you if you want to play Ronald Jones. I do have Ronald Jones listed as a running back too. He's going up against the Panthers, and the Panthers do allow almost 29 PPR points to the running back. So we know Leonard Fournette's going to probably be the leading pass catcher of the two backs. So whether that's 5 and 6 catches for him, Ronald Jones still gets about 2 or 3 catches for 15 to 20 yards. So Ronald Jones does have a decent floor of about 7 to 8 points. And then when they do get to the red zone, I think we might see Ronald Jones kind of fall into the end zone here. We were talking about this game earlier. I did want to pull up Bucks Panthers week 2 because we got some history with these two games, with these two teams here. So I'm just looking for a box score here. So again, back in week 2, we do see both running backs, Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones. Both guys played pretty well. Ronald Jones had a fumble in this one, though, and that's why they kind of rolled with Leonard Fournette. So it's hard to tell. I think let's look here. Last weekend was a trap shoot, too, because the team only rushed the ball 5 times. But I would bet that Ronald Jones has more carries in this one. Leonard Fournette has more receptions. So they both kind of have a good mix here. Both guys have a chance to score. And, 3 touchdowns combined between the two of them last weekend. We do see Ronald Jones catch 2 of 4, Leonard Fournette 4 of 13. So I think if you needed someone in a PPR league, I do like Leonard Fournette's high floor, but I also like Ronald Jones. Tampa Bay should be looking to establish the run in this one, and Ronald Jones is still a starter. So like every time that the game starts, they're going to put Ronald Jones in there. So if he comes in hot, they're going to kind of continue to ride the hot hand. So he gets the first attempt to say, hey, this is going to be a good game for me. So I think if you wanted to start Ronald Jones, I'm okay with it over Josh Jacobs just because of the numbers here. We do see Carolina, it's a green matchup, about 29 PPR points to the running backs. And then if you look at Josh Jacobs going up against the Broncos defense, it's a tough matchup. They're the 8th best against the running backs, under 21 PPR points per game here. We did see Devontae Booker get a touchdown last weekend. He's kind of caught him up in snap share. So I guess if you wanted to bench Josh Jacobs, I think I'm okay with Ronald Jones as your number 3 option there. So if you guys got more questions, you can fire them away. I did want to finish quickly talking about the Monday Night Football game here as we get back to that. We did talk about the fantasy points allowed here. We got the green matchups on the Vikings side. Bears defense is going to be a little bit tough. But you're not benching Dalvin Cook at all. He's the one must start of this whole game. You got Kirk Cousins going up against the Bears defense. I'm not really interested in that at all. He's an emergency quarterback 2 in Superflex leagues. Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, these guys are just low-end wide receiver 3s. For me, I'm nervous about the Vikings passing game in this one. And then I do think Dalvin Cook, you're not benching Dalvin Cook. He's going to be the offense in this one. And if the Vikings win, it's going to be because of him. But we did see that on the Bears defense side here, they're solid against everything else, but for some reason, the tight end points is the one spot that they do allow. So 14.5 points to the tight end. We saw Irv Smith catch 2 touchdowns last weekend. So if you're in a pinch and need a tight end and you want the Monday Night Football hedge, Irv Smith could be a decent play there. I could see him making a couple plays there and making some nice run after the catch ability. I'm not starting the Vikings defense. I don't think that's a good idea. Alexander Madison, Kyle Rudolph, Chad Beebe, not interested in any of those guys. And then on the Bears side, because the Vikings defense just lights up green, I'm interested in Nick Foles as a quarterback 2 in Superflex leagues. David Montgomery, this is the one we have to monitor the most. Let's just see if he practiced today. So no practice for David Montgomery the last 2 days. He's questionable with the concussion symptoms. He's going to probably need to practice tomorrow for him to play on Monday. So if you have David Montgomery on your team and you don't have a running back that you can plug in on Monday night, maybe you have to play one on Sunday night. I don't know. I think I'm leaning towards David Montgomery resting in this one. So I'm going to probably move him down. I'm not comfortable recommending any other Bears backup running back, whether it's Cordero Patterson, Lamar Miller, Ryan Nall. I'm probably just going to avoid all of the Bears running backs if Montgomery can't go. The one spot that I do feel comfortable with is the Vikings against receivers. Not very good at all. Almost 46 points per game here. So Allen Robinson, Darnell Mooney, Anthony Miller. I mean, for sure you're starting Allen Robinson, but Darnell Mooney and Anthony Miller all of a sudden become interesting wide receiver 3 flex options there for you. And then Jimmy Graham going up against the Vikings. Vikings are not the greatest against tight end, about 13.5 points. But again, I've been saying it all year. Tight end points are hard to come by. And I think Jimmy Graham's like tight end 5 or 6 on the season right now. So, I mean, you got to continue rolling with Jimmy Graham if you have him, I think. Consider starting the Bears defense. They've been kind of hot lately. And if you know how the defense game goes, they could take advantage of some Kirk Cousins turnovers, but Dalvin Cook is also hot. So we'll see how that one goes. But again, nobody on the bench here. Cordero, Lamar Miller, Ryan Nall. I think it's all going to be funneled through Nick Foles and the passing game. Dalvin Cook on the other side. So enjoy the NFC North showdown here. I wish they could flex Monday Night Football games. It's not going to be a very fun fantasy game unless you have Dalvin Cook or one of the Bears receivers. But that's pretty much it for the Week 10 start sits. We're going on a little over an hour now. Wow, time flies when you're talking about all these games here. So if anyone has any more comments or any more questions, start sit questions, I'll open those up. Otherwise, I'm probably just going to hop over to one of the news pieces here and just kind of go through some of the other news blurbs that I saw. But yeah, I want to thank Sam, Bill, Sonny, Andrew Bauer. We got Jason in the chat room. We got a lot of guys in here. Kashif, Mostafa, Magic Trio, ESO Only. I want to thank all you guys for hanging out and asking questions with me tonight. If you guys are into prop bets, I'm going to be hanging out with my good friend Jesse tomorrow at 10 a.m. Central Time. We're going to be talking just all the player prop bets that we are interested in tomorrow. We'll be looking at DraftKings Sportsbook. Again, that's at 10 a.m. After this episode, I'll probably enter a new YouTube live thing that you guys will be able to click on. But hang out with us tomorrow at 10 a.m. And then I'm considering doing a show tomorrow at about 6 p.m. just to answer any more start sit questions and just kind of rolling over the news. It looks like we got one more question in here from our guy, Josh V. Vuglas. So Chase Edmonds or Duke Johnson for flex standard league? I'm going to say Duke Johnson, man, because David Johnson's already been ruled out, which is a pretty big news here for Duke Johnson. Let's just look at the practice reports here. They did already say, yes, David Johnson is out. And if we look quick at the start sit charts here, Texans and the Browns. The Browns, I mean, they're fine against the running backs here, but 23.4 points. I really don't think the Texans have any other running backs that they're going to use besides Duke. So assuming Duke gets the majority of the running back workload, you're looking at 15, 20 points for Duke Johnson in this one. And then I just want to show you what he did last weekend, because I think it happened pretty quickly in the first quarter for David Johnson. He had the concussion. Let's see here. So Duke Johnson, 81% of the snaps, 16 carries, 41 yards, and a touchdown, and then 4 for 4 on his targets, 32 yards. So he's going to be their workhorse. He's going to get the most touches here. They do have another guy, Buddy Howell, Cullen Gillespie. It's going to be all Duke Johnson. He's going to get probably upwards of 80 to 90% of the touches. And then with Chase Edmonds, I'm nervous about Kenyon Drake because he's been practicing limited all week. He should be playing, and I'm not comfortable with the snap counts. They might kind of ease Kenyon Drake back in there. So I feel more comfortable about Duke Johnson getting the majority of the work versus Cardinals backfield kind of up in the air. So a little bit iffy for that one for me. So I'm going to lean Duke Johnson. It just seems like more of a safe bet there. So thanks for the question, Josh. And I don't know. If anyone has any more questions, you can follow me on Twitter at @thefellowkgb. I think we've been going over almost an hour and 7 minutes now, so I'm going to get out of here. But enjoy the rest of your Friday night. Again, I want to thank everybody here that answered or that asked questions. I'll be live tomorrow at 10 a.m. I might do another show at 6 p.m. But yeah, man, enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much for your time. Hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you in another video. Peace.